Completely Booked, the official podcast of the Jacksonville Public Library. I'm Gabby.
And I'm Amanda. Picture yourself on the marshy banks of an island situated on the western shores of Amelia Island and directly on the intercoastal waterway, surrounded by a dreamy canopy of century-old live oak trees dripping with moss and overlooking the water. There you will find yourself on Crane Island, and that is where we are taking you today with our guests, UNF alumni Matt Birdwell and Jarrod Knox. Matt and Jarrod at Riverside Homes were an integral part of the dream team that created the Southern Living Magazine 2019 Idea House.
A Southern Living Magazine Idea House is a house built for everyone to find something they love, take that idea home, and make it theirs. When it comes to idea houses, Southern Living Magazine has provided lots of inspiration for ways to live over the years, from suburban fixer-uppers to mountain farmhouses. For 2019, they really outdid themselves and built a home from the ground up on part of the Florida coast with a rich history, gorgeous oak trees, and unbeatable water views. The white Victorian-style beach house encourages indoor-outdoor living with 1,400 square feet of porch space in the front and back. This house is classic and familiar with a lighthearted old Southern spirit that's inspired by the old Victorian houses of nearby Fernandina Beach, Florida.
And one of the best parts about all of this is that you can take a quick drive up to Crane Island and tour the home for yourself. Take a step back in time and tour what some call a new old home, and just enjoy being on Crane Island's 185 acres of maritime forest preserve. If you can't make it out there, you can always use your library card to download Southern Living's August issue through RB Digital or Flipster.
So without further ado, here is our podcast with Matt Birdwell and Jarrod Knox at Riverside Homes. Well, thank you so much, Matt and Jarrod, for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves and your background?
So I've got a wife of 20 years. We recently celebrated our 20th anniversary.
Congrats.
Thank you. I've got 3 teenagers, 17, 15, and 13, Matthew, Ashton, and Brooke. So that's a struggle every day having 3 teenagers in your house. So when I grew up, I basically had my hands on everything. I wanted to build things. I wanted to destroy things and put it back together. And over time, I just kind of knew that was kind of the passion that I had. In high school, I took woodshop classes and drafting classes and kind of felt, okay, I can do something with my life and apply it towards construction somehow. So after high school, I ended up playing junior college basketball, wound up back in Jacksonville at University of North Florida, and graduated with a building construction management degree. So that's how I got my start and have been working in construction ever since.
Mm-hmm. And you guys are both UNF alumni, right?
That's right.
Did you go through the same program?
I did. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about Riverside Homes?
Yeah, so Riverside is relatively a new company. It was founded in 2012 by Matt Roberts and Chris Wood. They kind of merged their talents together and really have created something pretty special. Riverside Homes will build over 100 houses this year. We have 2 different kind of branches of the company. We've got a semi-custom leg to the company, and then we have a full custom side. We've won countless awards, from Parade of Homes awards to Best Builder of St. Augustine to Best of House, and recently obviously been awarded the 2019 Southern Living Idea House build. So we've got a lot of accolades in a short period of time.
And can you explain to our listeners what exactly an idea house is?
Sure. So Southern Living Magazine, we've all heard of that here in the South, right? They build one idea house a year in different parts of the country. So they've been doing this. I think this is in their low 50, maybe 53rd, something like that, idea house. But they've been doing this for a long time. Primarily, they're looking at locations in the South, and they're looking for destinations. So with that, they partner up with a full team, from the builder to an architect to interior designers, and then collaborate together. And then every year in their August edition, they put that house on display in their magazine.
And how was Riverside Homes chosen?
It's kind of an interesting story, because Crane Island, where we built the house, when we started this house, there was no construction, there was no vertical in the whole neighborhood. So normally they're looking at a destination that's established and that the vision's already there. John Hillman, who is the vice president of sales for Crane Island, reached out to Southern Living and said, hey, we're building a very unique community here. We think it's something that kind of partners with what you're trying to do. How can we collaborate together? And I don't know how many conversations they had, but before you know it, Southern Living and some of their people decided to come tour Crane Island and check it out. So again, they're coming here. They don't see any construction. It's just trees and
it's uninhabited.
Right. I mean, and so John cast a vision to get them to show up. When they got here, they instantly fell in love with Crane Island. And so then there's, probably weeks go by and they're kind of contemplating between Crane Island and one other destination. And before you know it, they've chosen Crane Island as the destination to build the house.
That's cool. And how exactly do you get to Crane Island?
Oh, that's a good question. So Crane Island is up in Amelia Island. It's not far from the Ritz. It's not far from the airport. You actually will see airplanes fly overhead when you're out there in Crane Island. It consists of thousands of feet of intercoastal waterways and marsh front. It is technically an island. There's a little causeway that you cross over into Crane Island.
So you go through Amelia Island to another island?
Essentially, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So it's an island within the island. Yeah.
Okay.
And the edition came out in August, and it says Best Idea House Ever. That's pretty special.
It is, yeah. And that's something that Sid Evans, the editor in the magazine, mentions through the editorial about this really being the best house ever, the best idea house. And, it's a huge compliment for us. We're just honored to be a part of it and to have been chosen to build the house and to do it successfully in the time frame that we were given was a huge plus.
Yeah. I haven't been yet, but I do plan on going. And what I've seen on the website, it's like a timeless design. It's like classic on the inside and classic on the outside. And it's like, it's not trendy. Like it'll be the same in 10, 20, 40, 50 years. Like it's just class. Can you tell me what some of your inspiration was or how you came up with the design?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. So the timeless approach is what we were trying to accomplish. Starting with the architectural team, Jim Strickland and Clay Rokicki out of Atlanta. Jim started Historical Concepts back in the early 80s. They've designed timeless architecture in the South for many years. He's actually designed several of the Southern Living idea houses over the years. But their whole thing is timeless architecture. And when someone comes into that house, you want to see things that you've seen in the past, but you also see as new. So they've kind of titled this house as the new old home.
Yeah.
And then Heather Chaddock, who's the interior decorator on the project, she's from Birmingham, Alabama. And her approach was also just very timeless. And one of the things that she would always tell me if we had a question, Jarrod and I would be kicking around this idea about doing something or whatever it may be. And we'd say, well, what would Heather say? And we'd call Heather and she'd say, pretend like the house is 100 years old. And we'd be like, okay, pretend like it's 100 years old. So there's elements of the house that there's exposed framing and walls. A lot of the trim details are not what you would typically see in a new construction house now. So that timeless approach, the endless aging idea is what they were going after. It's kind of known as a timeless architecture where the house would develop over time. So like a generational home. So if you would see the house from the air, you'd see kind of a main body of the home, and then you'd see a couple wings of the house. So those wings are made to look like they were added on over time. And then within those wings, almost looks like maybe you closed off a porch or you added another little section or whatever it is. But it's a house that just grows for generations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've read the reviews and everybody's just raving about it. And from the photos, I like this little part where you guys had like a water spout and a dog bowl. So it's like the dog had its own like pipe to get water. It was definitely a nice touch.
And is this style of architecture what Riverside Homes typically does, or do you do a little bit of everything?
So we do a little bit of everything. The neat thing about comparing the Southern Living house to what we typically do. So we do with a lot of architects. They're all a little bit different, but ultimately the customers that we build for are the ones that are kind of directing the traffic with the design and with the plan and with the overall approach. So every house we build is different. We're designing houses based on our customers' personalities, their styles, their families, the influences they had, the inspiration that they have for the house. So it's always different, and that's a fun thing for us. We're constantly doing something that's unique, and we're not building the same thing over and over and over. And then with the Idea House, obviously that was just a collaboration of several people. Weekly, we had conference calls as a team, several of them, emails. I can't even tell you the amount of emails that went back and forth. I kind of joke, but we finished this house in the beginning of May. I think the plans were actually finalized maybe the month before, because things were constantly changing as we were building the house.
So how big was your team on site?
So Jarrod was there every day. He probably slept there half the time.
Yeah.
I was out there quite often. Other Riverside team members were heavily involved with the project as well. And our trade partners, I think that's something that's really set us apart on this whole project, is our trade partners, our vendors, our suppliers, they all bought into the project and really poured everything into it. And their partnership and their commitment to it and the dedication to help us, that the whole team approach was the only way to get this done and get it done in time. We were in a battle every single day with the schedule.
How many months did it take to finish it?
About 5.5.
You guys built that house in 5.5 months?
Yeah, we
don't like to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't even I had weeks where I didn't even see my kids at all because I'd leave before the sun came up and come home at 8, 9 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And Matt as well. I mean, I remember nights we were out there at 7:30. But yeah, we had.
Were you guys hammering and building as well with your team, or do you guys just oversee it?
Typically not, but there was definitely times where we had tools out. We had at certain points, like on the back end of the house, we had, I would say, like upwards of 40 people on site at one time. And like he was kind of hitting on with the subcontractors, I mean, there's so many people that bought into it that we wouldn't have made it without them. Mm-hmm. I could think of a bunch of different tasks of, one big thing I would think is on the outside, all the exterior carpentry and stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, we got some really good guys that do that are highly qualified, highly efficient, and they really made that come together for us on our stairs, our rails, and all that. So it wasn't your 40-hour-a-week type of job. It was your heart and soul into that thing. So, mm-hmm. It was a huge accomplishment when we got it done because it really was an impossible deadline at the front end. It's like, I remember asking Matt, I'm like, he's telling me the date, and I'm like, okay, what's the real date? Like, what's the real finish date that we had to have? He's like, no, that's it. And I'm like, oh, okay.
We knew from the very
flexibility.
beginning. Yeah, we knew from the very beginning this date that we had to reach, right? Because Southern Living, this is a production. This is a magazine that is published and it goes out. It's the August edition, but it hits news shelves the middle of July. They've got to come in and furnish the house. Heather's got to come and do all her decorating. They've got to send the editorial team and the photographers. All that stuff takes time. So when they give us a deadline, that deadline stays. That's it. So when we first, kind of took it all in and said, okay, we know we're up against, we got to make it happen. We're going to figure it out. The deadline never changed. The scope of work constantly grew. So our project got larger. It got more detailed, more involved. Typically it should have taken longer to do. If somebody came, if a buyer came to me now and handed me those plans and the same specifications and said, hey, how long would it take you to build this house? I would tell them 14 to 16 months. And that would be a challenge in most situations with the amount of detail here. So when we say we built it in 5.5, 6 months, whatever it was around the clock. And I think it says a lot about Riverside Homes and our relationships with those partners, that they're willing to drive past many jobs to come to this job and then pour it all in for us and show up on weekends. And it's almost I kind of feel bad for it, but we had people working on Mother's Day, and we had people working on Easter,
Christmas Eve. And
it was, every holiday people were working and we didn't force it. They knew the timeline, they knew what we were up against, and they said, no, we're gonna keep helping you and keep fighting this fight with you, and we're gonna get it done. Yeah. And that was an approach Jarrod and I took from day one. We never said, how are we going to do this? We never said this is impossible. We always said, we're going to figure it out one way or another. We're going to figure it out. We're going to get it done, and then we'll sleep later.
Right.
Yeah. And something that drove me was, hearing from people like, even subs or whatever. It's like, it looked impossible. Like 2 months before we finished, there was no way. To them, to some people, it's going to be impossible, and people saying that there's no way you're going to finish it. That really drove me to, yes, we will finish this thing.
You can't tell me what I'm going to do.
We will figure a way out, a way to do it. And I remember some mornings. You had to like really dig and try to find motivation. So I would look up, motivational little quotes, and I'd shoot it over to Matt just like for a motivational thing for the day, just to keep, because you really have to self-motivate. And for me, for all of us, but for me, getting chosen from Matt and Ryan, Riverside, that was a huge opportunity for me personally. And so like, for me, that was like,
a really great,
your big chance. Like, here's your chance to either shine or not to. And so it was not something that I took lightly, and something that, that meant a lot to me. And he mentioned his wife. My wife, she understood. I have two little girls, a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, and so the 1-year-old was, a newborn. And so, having that support from my wife, knowing that I was going to be putting in 60, 70 hours a week, sometimes more than that, was huge.
Definitely.
And I know Matt could attest to that from his family. Just we knew at the timeline, we knew the hours it was going to take. It was going to take everything, and we had a lot of support from our family. So that was really nice.
Yeah, definitely.
So is this your most gratifying project you've ever
for me?
done
Yeah,
to date?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just the publicity that it brings is, it's second to none. There's, millions of subscribers to Southern Living Magazine, and everybody seems to know about it. And I've got friends who call me and say, oh, I had my uncle or aunt come down and we were talking and they went and toured your house and I told them that you were a friend of mine or whatever. And so we hear stories about that all the time. And, really for us, I think when we were doing this, Jim and Clay at Historical Concepts, they've been doing this a long time, and they're top of their class. And I think we were trying to please them. We got to a point where we took this whole project and we had to kind of put it back to where it was, bring it down to reality, because we had to get it done. But ultimately, I know in the back of my mind, I'm constantly thinking, all right, we need to make sure this thing is architecturally correct, make sure we're hitting the details. The details are very important. There's going to be thousands of people that walk through this house. Mm-hmm. Everybody's a critic. They're going to try to point stuff out. So we want to do the best job that we can. And we take every house. We do the same thing with every single house. But it's just something where when you're on this level, you really have to start digging into the details and let all the hoopla with all the, publicity coming in and timing and everything else, just put it aside and do the best you can.
So when you were awarded the project, obviously you already have a background in designing houses, but did you spend a lot of time researching timeless details? Like, did you look at other old houses and you were like, I want this in it, I want this in it, like, or what was like your major inspiration for all the details? And
yeah, so it's kind of interesting. Back when Jim and Clay and the whole team came down, so we knew the lot that we were going to build the house on, and it was one of the best lots in the neighborhood. It's an intercoastal direct frontage lot. It's not your typical rectangular, fully cleared lot. This had a lot of live oak trees. It's a low property that it would require a special foundation. So all these things that automatically jump the building time up. But I remember watching Jim and Clay walk around with a notebook, and they're identifying every single live oak tree, and they're pulling measurements very precisely to each of those trees. They're looking at the lot corners and starting to already sketch footprints of a house. And so you start seeing them work this magic, and they've kind of got the footprint laid out and how they wanted to design it. And then they really go down to downtown Fernandina, historic Fernandina, and start pulling some architecture elements from that area. So there's things, if you were to look at our porch details on our railing, it's very intricate details, and you see that design. But if you go down to downtown Fernandina, you're going to see elements very similar. So it's kind of neat to see some of that craftsmanship pulled straight from the island already.
Oh, yeah.
And then implementing in this idea house.
And eventually Crane Island is going to have multiple homes. They're trying to develop it into a little community. Do they have an idea of how many homes there will be?
It's going to be 113. So right now there's 113 home sites. You've got a variety of direct intercoastal frontage lots. You've got marsh front lots. There's a forest area. There's a park area. Alice Park is going to be a big little concept of Crane Island, where all these homes are going to basically live on the park. So your front door is going to be steps away from a park area that people are going to mingle together and hang out and have picnics or whatever else. And there's a small cottage district also that's going to have a kind of intimate feeling as well. But 113 lots. There's, like I said, thousands of feet on the intercoastal and marsh. So you've got views everywhere that you look, to the marsh or to the water.
So if somebody was interested in buying a house on Crane Island, they would drive through, and right now there's only a couple that have been purchased. So there's a lot of slots still open. So you get like your choice of slot.
And I know you had one picked out already.
Right, yeah.
You told me you were looking at one,
yeah,
we'll hold that one for you. But no, there is. It's happening quick. Of course, with this house bringing, Since it's been open and since June, we've had over 7,000 people tour it. So there's a lot of traffic coming in and out, and you're starting to see the home sites get picked up and people reserving the home sites and starting to go through that process with the architects and getting the plans in order.
Yeah, I can see it being a really great site for like people that have like second homes, like for the summer or for the winter or for, I don't know, like there's probably not going to be a Publix on the island.
There's a lot of stuff that's really close. Like you were saying, you go over a little causeway onto it. So, to get to Publix from on the island is about between 5 and 10 minutes.
Okay, that's not bad.
So you've got your Publix, our go-to lunch spots, where Firehouse and Jersey Mike's right around the corner. You've got everything right around the corner, your Staples, and just anything. So. And
there's actually a bike path.
You're not very secluded.
Okay.
You are, but you're not. Like it is very private. We went out there. We had a party out there not too long ago, and me and my wife were the last ones there, sitting on the back porch. And it is dead silent when nobody's around. You do feel very secluded, but you're also convenient to everything. In Amelia Island right there.
Yeah.
Too, so
that's really cool. It's like you can be close, but also.
It's a nice
away
little
from
getaway.
Everything, like kind of back to like how it was.
Yeah, and they're under construction on the captain's house, which is kind of like the amenity center.
There's a handful of houses under construction. I think the first owner is moving in anytime now. But again, something that credit to Crane Island for casting that vision, because when the Southern Living folks came down, they're just walking on dirt and looking at a great view, and decided to take a chance at this and choose Crane Island as a destination. And first house that goes up, and of course it was the first one finished with our time frame we had to work under, and now you're starting to see other ones pop up and getting close to finishing as well. So once the homeowners start moving in, I think that's going to take on another element in itself.
So when somebody buys a house on Crane Island, do they get like a selection of homes to buy, or do they get to come up with their own design?
Yes, so we have a handful of plans that are designed specifically for Crane Island. We think some people will choose those plans and kind of the features that we're going to offer and build them like that. But most people are going to come in there and choose their lot and then go through a design process. It's going to be unique to them. They're going to customize a plan, start from scratch with an architect, and come up with their own plan and their own finishes too. So we've got kind of a program in place that we can offer a package, but they don't have to use that package.
And are you doing all of the homes on Crane Island or just a handful of them?
Yes, there's 4 builders in the subdivision, so 4 preferred builders. So when the buyers come in, they typically get a chance to interview all 4 builders, kind of see what we're about. Of course, we show them the idea house as kind of our model home out there right now. And then they go through our plan process and just kind of discover us as people. A lot of this process is relationships. So we're going to spend a lot of time with these buyers, and they got to like us and get along with us, and that's part of the project. So they're interviewing us, we're getting to know them, recording them sometimes for several months, and then ultimately hoping to build more houses.
Mm-hmm. So when you were building the idea house, did you have to like put some other houses on the back burner and focus just on idea house, or were you doing both at the same time?
That's an interesting question. We have, obviously that's not the only house we're building.
Right.
But we, on the custom side, we have, we probably had 8 or 9 houses going on the custom side at the same time. And fortunately, we've got great superintendents and other people that work for our company that are fully capable of managing those jobs and taking care of that. So, with Jarrod being one of our construction managers on the custom side, he had another house that he was building down the road too. A lot of people don't realize. But that house turned out beautiful in a timely manner as well. So there's other houses that we're still doing. We're not putting them on the back burner. Because we have those people in place that can step in and help where they need to.
And did you run into any issues with the historic preservation of Fernandina and Amelia Island, or were they kind of okay with the building?
I think the biggest problem that we had was because Crane Island was brand new and this was the first house, there's a lot of kind of uncertainty between the permitting offices. So, there was processes that weren't quite in place yet because it was a new neighborhood, and there were some items that they were still trying to figure out, and we had some flood zone areas that were a little bit different than other ones that they're working with. So from the very beginning, we went and established a great relationship with the city of Fernandina Beach. We got to know all the people back in their offices, and And I think that was key. So we had this relationship where we could walk in and they would invite us back to their office and we could sit down and kind of go through things. And they knew what was coming to town. They knew this was going to bring a lot of people to tour the house. They were excited about it, and they kind of partnered with us to help our process. So sure, we had hiccups like every project, but nothing we couldn't work through.
What flood zone is it? Flood zone A? Flood zone B?
Well, so it's actually in a limb wall. So,
okay.
And this is a whole new thing for us. Once we started designing this house, we didn't know it right away that it was in the limb wall. So, which changes the type of foundation and how you design and how you build your foundation.
What's a limb wall?
It's a limited wave action area. So you have to design the structure whereas the water could come in and then get out. So the house is off grade. It sits up about 5 feet off grade. It's on auger cast piles and a grade beam and pier foundation. The garage is on a stem wall foundation, which has flood vents. Again, the flood vents are made so if the water does come in, the water can get in and then get out. So that's another thing that kind of going back to that scope of work. So when we signed up for this and we knew the date, we're thinking, oh, this is going to be a typical foundation. This is going to take this long and XXX. And then all of a sudden, we have this new type of foundation we have to build, which is
at
really
3 weeks,
right? Which is usually takes longer. But again, we couldn't look at it that way. We just looked at it as, okay, this is the task we're gonna get to here. Jarrod and I would eat lunch once a week and kind of run through the schedule because every week was different. And at the time, it wasn't focus on May; it was focus on this week. If we get this done this week, next week we have a new challenge, and then the next week, and the next week, and then before you know it, May was here. So
yeah, we definitely had to. It wasn't your standard scheduling of a house. We had to kind of come up with creative ways to make stuff work. And I mean, it was a lot of, as far as the scheduling went, just a lot of putting our heads together and figuring out how to make it happen. And like Matt said, you definitely you never lose sight of the big picture and the timing, but you did have to take it 1 to 2 weeks at a time and just really focus on what can we accomplish these 2 weeks, and just do your best to keep it moving. Yeah, because there was no time to.
Yeah, definitely. I went back and read some of the blog posts from you guys' construction, and it was just I couldn't believe how fast it was getting built, and
we're glad you feel that way because we didn't.
And it looked like everybody was happy, and so. And there was the ribbon cutting ceremony, and
yeah, the team that we worked with was amazing. So there's Nicole Hendricks that works for Southern Living Magazine. She's the girl that's in charge of all of these idea houses. So when we were finishing up our project, she was already working on her next house, and the amount of stress and she does so much for that magazine and does a really good job. So she was somebody that we talked to.
We call her Mrs. Southern Living.
Yes, absolutely. So she worked on it a ton. Heather, which was the interior designer, decorator, I talked to her multiple times a week, just bouncing stuff off. Hey, here's what it shows. Here's what we have. What do we do here? Clay, Matt dealt with Clay more on questions, on architecture questions and stuff like that. But the team that we had was absolutely amazing.
How big was the team? How many different companies were involved?
Well, there was Southern Living, which would be Nicole and Sid over there, the chief editor, and then our interior decorator Heather, the architecture firm, and then Riverside Homes, which with the Riverside Homes team, you were involved more on the front end stuff, but I know Matt and Chris and you are super involved in getting everything coming out of the ground. And
yeah, it was pretty interesting because weekly we had a conference call, and at the beginning you had maybe 10 people on that call, and the whole time it's just kind of running through updates and schedules and what we still need. And during this process, there's a lot of people who sponsor the house. So Southern Living has some major sponsors, James Hardy and Marvin Windows and Sherwin-Williams, a lot of these major companies. And that's something that Nicole deals with. And so constantly we're kind of waiting on her to say, hey, okay, this sponsor has come through and now we're going to use this product. So when I say things changed until that last few weeks, things changed until the last few weeks. We had one of our sponsors was a sunsetter awning, and we didn't really know where we were going to put the awning. And we had several phone conversations about this. And ultimately, and this is probably less than 3 weeks before the deadline of the house, we decided we were going to add it off the back of the house. Well, we couldn't just add it off the back of the house because then it didn't really serve a purpose. So we added a new deck off the existing deck to serve a purpose for this. So those are the kind of things. And we always took it with, okay, yeah, this is added to our schedule, but this is what it is, and we have to do the best we can to make it happen. And but the team, I call it the dream team because you couldn't have asked for a better group of people to work with and get to know. I mean, we've made some lifelong friends out of it. We joke occasionally and we'll text or email back and forth saying, "Oh, I miss our conference calls or whatever." And and I'll say one quick thing about Clay. Clay, one of the architects. Again, him and Jim, they've done this. They've been through this rodeo several times, and I would always joke because if I had a question for Clay, a lot of people would respond and send you a little paragraph or whatever else. Clay takes notes and replies with pictures, with hand-drawn sketches. So some of his sketches are unbelievable. But if we ever had a question about a detail or a design, in a matter of minutes, he would draw just the most perfect to scale detail and send it to you. And to have that, so those are times where we're sitting there waiting with nail guns and the saws and just need an answer, and they're there and they're jumping right in it. They know what we're up against and are getting to us and sending us the information. So we really couldn't have asked for a better situation and a better team to work with.
Mm-hmm. So would you do it again?
Give us some time. To, we're still recovering from this one. But no, it was a lot of fun, and it was something where, again, it's typically kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but if they came back to us and said, we want to do this again next year, we'd probably do a lot of praying, but
I don't think we'd say no.
Definitely wouldn't say no.
Do you guys have a favorite part of the Idea House?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I was looking through the people because they do a questionnaire after people go through it. There's a lot of different stuff I like about the house. Couple areas that are my favorite is the bunk room. So we have 4 built-in beds that we did up there. A lot of detail went into that. Matt and Clay kind of put their heads together on getting that all put together. We had a really good trim carpenter in there that did that work. Another area that I love is off the back porch area on the left, there's a outdoor fireplace out there, a brick fireplace. And it's just really pretty. You've got, when you're sitting on the couches out there, you're looking at, we've got some nice light fixtures on that fireplace and nice fixture over a little dining table in the back looking out to the porch. And then we also did a really cool old looking screen porch in there. It just came out really good. So that's probably my favorite place to hang out when I'm there.
I'll check that out when I walk through.
Yeah.
And what about you?
I've got favorite areas in all parts of the house. I mean, it's really something where it's a lot of fun to give people tours and kind of walk through the house and talk about each area, because you'll go to an area that you first kind of think, oh, this is just kind of we call it the queen bedroom or whatever. But then you look at it and you're like, well, let me tell you about this bedroom. Let me show you this trim detail we did here, or the element of how this countertop goes across the window, or whatever it may be. But I agree that the house is just under 4,600 square feet of heated and cooled space, and there's a little bit over 1,500 square feet of porches. So again, being on the water, we wanted to capture all that outdoor, indoor living combined. But the screen porches, like Jarrod says, are a really cool spot. I mean, the porches in general are just neat, and there's so much detail on the porches. But every part of the house is a lot of fun. There's stories behind it all. The bunk room is the most elegant bunk room you'll probably ever see.
Yeah.
I mean, bunk rooms are typically designed for kids, and they look kind of playful. And this is, obviously the kids would sleep in it, but adults can go sleep in this bunk room and feel comfortable. It's that nice and elegant.
Mm-hmm. And so when the Idea House is done having its tours, it's going to go up for sale, right?
It's for sale now. If you'd like to purchase it, we can talk to you about it. Or if any of the listeners would like to purchase it, reach out to us. So we do have to keep it open open for tours through December. But we're hoping to get it under contract before we finish the tours.
Mm-hmm. And will that come fully furnished and ready to go?
Yeah. So the asking price is $3.9 million. It does come fully furnished. So all the decorations and as you see, you could walk in there tomorrow and be extremely happy.
Yep. Yeah, very good to know. We'll think about it.
So I'll tell you a neat story from the build. When we were installing our beds, we have 3 handmade mahogany beds that Andrew Reed from Alabama installed. So he comes in, and I'm walking down the stairs, and he's walking up the stairs, and I see this big burly guy with a big beard, and I look at him, I go, I know you from somewhere. And he kind of looks at me, and it pops in my head, and I'm like, you're on TV, aren't you? He's like, yep. And so Andrew's best friend is Ben, I think his last name. Napier. And him and his wife have a show, Hometown, on HGTV. So him, his wife, and his daughter came to see the house, and he helped Andrew install the beds and stuff. So that's pretty cool.
That must feel really cool.
So we talked to him. He's super down to earth guy, like really nice, and had a lot of good stuff to say about the house. So, and, we just kind of talk back and forth. And I was asking him about the show and it just how they do life, with the show and all that stuff. But it was really cool, and it was a big compliment from him. Just like, this is amazing. I'm like, I think your show's amazing. So it was neat.
Yeah, that is neat.
So I was a little starstruck.
Jarrod's had a man crush ever since.
So we are a librarian. We do love to talk books. Are there any books or magazines or even audiobooks that you guys listen to frequently and kind of keep up with everything?
So we read a lot in our business, between specification books and plans and that kind of stuff. So we're doing that a lot. I don't read a ton of books. When I read books, I typically will go towards some type of sports-related autobiography. There is a book that I probably bought it a year ago or so, but it's called Get Your House Right. So it's an architectural detail book. And it's very basic. The concept's simple. But it's a book, even our in-house designer likes to reference it, but it kind of shows you do's and don'ts of design elements in construction. So just from things that are architecturally correct or incorrect, showing you how to combine these elements and these, but don't do this. So that's a book that I'll refer to often just for some ideas. But if I'm going to read something for fun, I'm typically reading some type of autobiography, sports-related. I read Ernie Johnson's book recently. But so when I do read, that's what I gravitate towards.
But very cool. And is there anything else that you would like listeners to know about the Idea House or just Riverside Homes in general?
The Idea House, again, it's open for tours through December. So we encourage everybody to come out and take a look at it. Part of the proceeds do go to the Amelia Island Museum. It's open Wednesdays through Sundays, starting at 10 o'clock, shut down on Mondays and Tuesdays. So if you go, make sure you hit on one of days that are open. You can find more information on our website at myriversidehome.com or Crane Island.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we hope you enjoyed this episode of Completely Booked and learning more about the Southern Living Idea House and Riverside Homes. Be sure to take a trip to Crane Island and tour the home yourself, and also download Southern Living magazine through RB Digital or Flipster to check out the home before you get there.
And if you liked today's episode, please be sure to rate and review us. You can follow our social media channels anywhere at Jack's Library for info and updates on future podcasts and on library happenings.
Until next time, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Gabby.
Bye guys.